Hey guys, this is Jeff Copeland with CopelandMorgan.com, real estate brokerage in St. Petersburg, Florida, specializing in working with real estate investors. One of the probably second most frequently asked questions that I get, or at least a conversation that I always end up having with most of my investors, is the topic of flood zones and flood insurance when purchasing properties in Florida. Those of you who have had a consultation with me know that I generally advise basically don't buy investment properties in flood zones unless you are buying vacation rentals on the beach. And a lot of people struggle with what does that look like and how do I know? How do I tell if a property is in a flood zone or not? Interestingly, Trulia has one of the best interactive flood zone map products that I have seen. The only other alternative that I've found that's reliable is to go to the FEMA flood zone panels, and it's a nightmare. You have to download a PDF and drag and zoom on a PDF document, and then when you get to the end of it, you have to download another one. The great thing about Trulia's map is it is interactive, meaning you can zoom out, you can zoom in, you can drag it around, and you can find your property on the map in most cases. The rule of thumb here is avoid the gray. Now, when we're zoomed out like this, you may think, oh, well, shoot, that takes out the whole area. It's not as bad as it looks. There are tons of neighborhoods in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater that are, what we refer to as high and dry or flood zone X. X is good. The flood zones that you want to avoid are A and AE, and then V, which is the very bad. You may not be able to tell it from here, but there are actually two shades on the map. Dark gray is your AE flood zone, and A, and then light gray is your AE, which is slightly not quite as bad. But basically, you don't want to buy an investment property in any of the areas that are shaded gray on this map. If you saw my kind of lay of the land video, you remember me talking about how Pinellas County is really low lying from this northeast quadrant down through Lake Seminole over here, and especially when you get into Pinellas Park, much of Pinellas Park, even though it's 10 miles from the coast or 10 miles from the beach, can be in a flood zone, and that surprises a lot of people. I get this a lot. People find a wonderful property that they just fall in love with in Pinellas Park, and I pull it up and I say, oh, that's in a flood zone. And they're like, really? It's like 10 miles from the ocean. But that's just why. As you can see here from Feather Sound, up by the St. Petersburg Clearwater Airport, all the way down really to Snell Isle and the Shore Acres neighborhoods here in St. Pete. These areas are all kind of low lying, and they tend to drain out through here at Lake Seminole out to the Gulf. At least I assume that's how they drain. I don't really know which way the water flows. I only care about the elevation and the flood zones. So I'll start here with St. Petersburg. Basically from 4th Street, well, you see it here as US 92, but everybody refers to this as 4th Street, at about 38th Avenue North. From there up to about 16th Street at 62nd Avenue North, that area and everything to the northeast of it is a flood zone. So we lop that off the map when we're talking about investment properties in St. Pete. But that actually leaves a lot of St. Pete. Interestingly, one of our greatest neighborhoods, which is really close to the water, Old Northeast here, much of it is not in a flood zone. Even though right down here, you're talking about like a block from the water, many of these homes here along Beach Drive. And so basically you've got all of Old Northeast, all of Kenwood, all of kind of the north central area of St. Petersburg, all the way across to South Pasadena, all the way down to Gulfport. Basically all these areas on the map that are not shaded are sort of a prime target for investment properties. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I found this great property, it's on 54th Avenue North at 4th Street, basically I can zoom in there and tell you 54th Avenue North and 4th Street, boom, that's in a flood zone. And you can zoom in really close here on this Trulia map. And I even run into situations sometimes where somebody's looking at a house, right here on the corner of 43rd Avenue North and 7th Street, and you really have to get down to the nitty gritty to figure out, well, let's see here. If you're on this corner, you're not in a flood zone, but if you're on this corner, you are. And then sometimes it gets so close as to, well, is the house itself in a flood zone or does it just encroach onto the parcel? And that's a discussion that you'll have to have with your insurance company when it comes down to, do I require or do I not? Am I required or am I not required to carry flood insurance on this property? Which brings up another interesting point. If you're paying cash, nobody cares. Nobody's going to force you to carry flood insurance. It's really only a necessary evil if you are financing the property or if you have plans to finance it through a refi or delayed financing or any type of commercial, bank traditional financing. They're going to require you to have flood insurance. So my advice typically is just you'll be okay if you avoid the gray, and that's kind of my rule of thumb. Over here, as you look to the north, you can see much of the peninsula up here in the Clearwater Largo area is high and dry. And then when you get over here into Tampa, most of downtown Tampa and the areas just north here, your Seminole Heights, Riverside Heights, most of those are pretty good. The flood zone really only comes up, not even as far as Ybor City here, just north of downtown. The one area where it is a factor is down here in the peninsula. As you get down here close to MacDill Air Force Base, you kind of have to stay along the spine of the South Tampa Peninsula to avoid flood zones. And so as you can see, it looks scary when you're zoomed out. You think, oh my goodness, the whole map is a flood zone. But as you zoom in, there are miles and miles of neighborhoods that are not in a flood zone. This is a really long URL, so I'm not going to force you to memorize it. But if you email me at Jeff, Jeff, at copelandmorgan.com, that's COPELAND I will be happy to send you a link to this interactive flood zone map. You can also contact me online via my website at themultifamilyguy.com, and I'll be happy to shoot you this map. It is a great learning tool. It's a great teaching tool to kind of show people where the flood zones are. And when we get into analyzing a specific property, it can be really useful to kind of figure out how close is it to a flood zone? Is the whole neighborhood in a flood zone? Is just this parcel in a flood zone? And so I find this to be a really, really useful tool for helping to visualize the flood zones, as opposed to just looking at it on a property by property basis and trying to figure out, well, is it X or A or AE or V or what? I like to kind of see the big picture, and that's one of the things I like about this Trulia map. So once again, shoot me an email or contact me through my website at themultifamilyguy.com. I'll share this link with you, and you can start doing your own flood zone research. I'll talk to you soon.